She had imagined that day in 1,000 different ways, but none of them came close to the reality she was living. Mariana sat on the floor of the room that would have been her bridal suite, staring at her cell phone screen, her hands trembling and her heart racing. There were no new messages, no missed calls, no sign of him. The wedding was supposed to be in 3 days. The preparations were almost done. The dress ready. The guests confirmed. The honeymoon paid for. But Daniel, the groom, had disappeared without leaving a single clue. Mariana couldn't understand. They hadn't argued. In fact, their last conversation had been full of affection and excitement. They had talked about the wedding playlist, about the appetizers that her mother insisted on changing, and about how nervous he was to dance in front of so many people. Everything was normal, or at least it seemed to be. Now hours had passed since his disappearance. His phone went straight to voicemail. His apartment was locked, and his car hadn't moved. Her messages had turned into a desperate monologue, unanswered. "If you don't want to get married, just tell me, please. Are you okay? Say something for God's sake." Nothing. Mariana had already gone through all stages of anxiety, fear, anger, denial. Now she felt empty and ashamed. How would she explain this to her family, to her friends, to everyone who had supported this dream? And worst of all, how would she explain it to herself? 3 days had passed. Mariana hadn't answered anyone's calls. She had turned off notifications, let the food spoil on the table, and left the flowers in the sink. She hadn't cried in front of anyone. She hadn't explained. She hadn't left the house. She just wanted to understand, but there was no explanation. Just silence. It was on the 3rd afternoon that the doorbell rang. She got up slowly, barefoot, hair messy, heart numb. When she opened the door, there was no one there, just a small brown envelope on the floor. It was addressed only to her. Her, name, handwritten, no return address. Her hands trembled. Inside was a letter and a necklace. The necklace was delicate, something he would have chosen. It had a small silver pendant in the shape of a compass. Mariana recognized it. She had once said she loved it in a shop window, a detail she had forgotten, but apparently he hadn't. The letter was short. "I'm sorry. I didn't have the courage to face you. I wasn't ready to carry what I've been hiding. If you still want answers, come to the place where we once dreamed of running away to. I'll be waiting for as long as necessary." It wasn't signed, but she knew it was from him. She reread the letter over and over until her hands stopped shaking. She knew what place he was talking about. It was a cabin in the mountains where they had spent a weekend once, disconnected from the world. No phone, no signal, just the two of them and their laughter echoing in the trees. She had thought that place would be the beginning of everything. Now it might be the end. Mariana didn't tell anyone she was going. She packed a backpack with essentials and got in the car early in the morning. Her hands still trembled when holding the steering wheel. The highway felt longer than she remembered. She passed familiar signs, winding curves, and stretches of forest that seemed unchanged. But inside her, everything was different. At one point, she stopped at a gas station to breathe. She looked at herself in the mirror of the convenience store bathroom and barely recognized what she saw. Pale, tired, but with a strange strength behind her eyes. She drove again. The path to the cabin was narrow and hidden between tall trees. The air was fresh, and birds sang in the distance. When she finally reached the clearing, she felt her heart stop. The cabin was there, intact, as if time hadn't passed. She got out slowly, took a deep breath, and knocked. The door was ajar. She pushed it with trembling fingers and stepped inside. Everything was clean, simple. There was a blanket folded on the couch and a fire ready to be lit, but no sign of him. Then she heard a noise outside, She turned around quickly and saw a figure approaching from between the trees. He wore a backpack, messy hair, a look of someone who hadn't slept well. It was him, Daniel. He stopped a few meters away, his eyes locked on hers. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But the expression on his face was unmistakable. Regret. They sat facing each other in silence. Daniel had made tea with the few things he still had at the cabin. Mariana didn't drink. She just looked at him, waiting. "I never meant to leave you like that," he said finally, his voice low. "But I was afraid you'd never forgive me." She didn't blink. Daniel ran a hand through his hair and took a deep breath. 2 months before the wedding, I received a letter from a woman I had met years before. She said she had a child, my child, a boy, and that she was very sick, that she might not survive. Mariana lowered her eyes. Her heart sank. I went to see if it was true. I did all the tests. And yes, he's my son, he continued. I spent the last few weeks trying to understand what to do, how to tell you, how to rebuild everything. "Why didn't you just say something?" Mariana finally asked, her voice hoarse. "Because I thought I would lose you, and I was already losing everything else." The silence between them was heavy. The fire crackled quietly, and outside the wind blew through the trees. Mariana stood up. She paced around the room. "A son, Daniel? A child you never mentioned, never even suspected existed?" "I didn't know, Mari, I swear." She turned to him, eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. "And now? What do you expect me to do?" "I don't expect anything," he replied. "But I wanted you to know the truth. Before you made a decision about us." That night, Mariana didn't sleep. She lay awake on the cabin's old couch, staring at the ceiling. Her mind flooded with memories, questions, and doubts. Outside, snow had begun to fall silently, covering the landscape with a soft white blanket. Daniel stayed in the small guest room. He hadn't tried to talk again. Maybe he knew that no words would fix what had been broken. In the morning, Mariana stood in front of the mirror in the bathroom. Her face looked pale, marked by the night. But her eyes, those were different. There was clarity in them. She went outside. Daniel was sitting on the steps, looking out into the woods, arms wrapped around himself. When he noticed her approach, he stood up. "I'm not here to judge you," she said. "I know things happen. Life isn't perfect. But I needed to know. I deserved to know. I know," he whispered. They walked a bit through the snow-covered trees, their footsteps muffled by the white. No one else around. Just them and the silence that wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. "Are you going to be part of his life?" she asked. "Yes. He's just a little over 5. He barely understands who I am." Mariana nodded slowly. "I don't know what I feel right now," she admitted. "But I know I don't want to keep running from it." Daniel looked at her. "So, what now?" "I'm going back," she said. "Back to my life. I'll figure things out. One step at a time." He didn't try to stop her, but in his eyes, there was something different now. Hope. Mariana returned home 2 days later. The flowers had withered, the apartment smelled of dust, and her wedding dress still hung in the closet, untouched, silent, forgotten. She didn't call Daniel, not right away. She needed time, space, and to remember who she was before everything. A week later, a new letter arrived. This time, with no necklace, no riddles, just a note. "I'm sorry again. I'll be here always, for you, for him, and for the truth. Whatever road you choose, I'll respect it." There was no signature again, but it didn't matter. She placed the letter in a drawer. She didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in weeks, she felt peace. Some stories don't end with weddings. Some begin after the silence. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Mariana's place?